topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert Show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from experts on such topics as legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to our experts in community association law, estate planning law, tax relief, Medicare, public insurance adjusters, neuropathy treatment, business brokers, and personal injury law, along with many other topics. Now here's your host for the last 17 years, Steve O.
Good morning. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Hey, I want to welcome our TikTok crowd. Absolutely amazing. Our show hasn't even started. We've already got over 1,000 likes already. That's pretty amazing, but this is an amazing show. Hey, I titled today's show, Don't Go Up Against the IRS Alone. I'm telling you, that's not a winning case for you. We have one of the top IRS legal, I say legal, there's firms out there that don't have lawyers. A lot of those national companies, they're not lawyers at all. I'm not going against them at all, but this is an actual law firm, one of the top law firms in the country, the Lance Drury Law Firm. And Lance has been with us over a year now. And I got to tell you, people have written to us. I've never gotten so many emails from listeners and viewers just thanking us for a show like this. Let me bring on my buddy, one of the hardest working attorneys in the United States, Attorney Lance Drury.
Good morning, Steve. It's great to see you again. It's been a while.
I know, we've had and I just found out, I don't know my dates or anything, but our national show is Monday. Monday is I guess it's a week from Monday is a holiday.
That's
and
right.
We're going to have to work around that. But Lance, it's so good to see you. And I got to tell you, I've been doing this for 17 years. I've never had a show that received so many letters just thanking us for a show like this. You're not going to believe this, but a lot of wives have motivated them to get their husbands to stop ignoring the IRS.
Steve, I got to tell you, what you've already said, I've got two stories for you. But they're not stories, they're facts. Number one, it's the man who gets in trouble. And they finally come to me, and I'll even bring it up in the initial consult, and I'll go, I bet your wife got you to come here. And they go, yep, she's been pushing them. Or they want to get married, and the girlfriend says, I'm not marrying you till you get your IRS problem resolved. But here's the other thing, Steve. You just brought this up, said the title of the show is Don't Do This with the IRS Alone. I got a great thing from yesterday. This firm hired us in Illinois. They went through an audit. It took 2 years. They had 4 different people. They said they gave them everything they wanted. And so they called me because they got an LT11 letter, which is a final notice of intent to levy. The IRS screwed up. The audit just got finished. They haven't even sent them a notice of deficiency to go to U.S. tax court, and they're already trying to levy them. But this is how screwed up the IRS is. But they did it on for 2 years, and they said, oh, my God, it took them 2 years. Now all these penalties and interest. Well, the revenue agent came in, and this may preclude us from going to U.S. tax court. and said, here, you guys need to sign this consent. This is the best it's going to be. So they signed the consent, said they agreed to everything. And there's 42, this is over $200,000. And $42,000 of this is accuracy related penalties for not reporting their income enough. Well, we got to go to U.S. tax court to get that kicked in whole or in part. We probably can get at least 50% of it kicked, if not 100. Well, now they waived their right to U.S. tax court, but we're still going to try to get there, saying they did not intelligently, voluntarily waive their right to go to U.S. tax court because of what the revenue agent told them in order to get them to sign the waiver. So you're absolutely right. It's a nightmare now. They're so upset, but I said, this is what happens when you try to do it on your own. And today, Steve, things are just picking up. Texas is really going great guns, Steve. Today, I got over a $200,000 case and over a $300,000 case, in addition to other prospective clients. And I know why they're calling me, because a federal tax lien has been filed, and they're going to say, we got to get the lien removed. And at that level, there's no way to get the lien removed. And I got to be honest with them. We can stop levies, but you know, the IRS is like any other creditor. They want to protect their interest. And the way to do that is to file a federal tax lien with the recorder of deeds in the county in which these people live. This is why you can't do this on your own.
You know, I want to spend time today because we're going to be replaying this show this Friday at 2:00 Eastern time. I really want to talk about your firm today, because there's so many people out there who don't understand what an attorney, and this is all you concentrate on, is tax relief, tax resolution. And there's attorneys out there that you look, they have bankruptcy, criminal law, personal injury law. They have a whole list of things they do. You just concentrate in this one area.
That's exactly right, Steve. And in fact, when I was a small town lawyer, 15 hours of continuing legal education a year. Now it's 50 to 100 or more for myself, and I don't have an active caseload, and for all my attorneys. And just today, I signed up for 2 separate webinars, one that's an hour, and the other one's 2 hours. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to talk about this, Steve. The IRS has now changed their internal revenue manual. They're giving revenue officers broader powers. It's now revenue officers supercharged. So now I'm going to come back in 2 weeks, give you some pointers about all that after I get finished with this webinar. But they're going to get more powers. They're going to come down more aggressively. They're going to want everything done now. But there's still hope, because I'm going to give you another story, Steve, but it's not a story. This is reality. This just happened. We're going great guns here, Steve. Last week, a client calls me. He's had $300,000 on the books for years. He hasn't filed for years. Of course, we can't get him a deal until the last 6 years are filed. He messes around. We have the returns for 2 months to sign. He doesn't sign them until 2 weeks ago. Last week, they levied his bank account. They took $150,000. We went through the financials. He's making money. We think there's no way. One guy said, I'll lift it to the extent he can pay this month's expenses, his personal expenses, but that's it. So that attorney went on vacation. She went to San Antonio this week. So I assigned it to one of my attorneys in Florida. He got a hold of somebody at the IRS, and he found out this guy is going to be terminated from his job at the end of the month. He says, get me notice of termination from the employer. So that's what we did. Called back, got the complete $150,000 levy lifted, and the guy owes now with the new returns over $400,000, and we're probably going to get him into currently non-collectible status, which means he's not going to pay a dime.
Wow. You know, what I've learned from you, Lance, is if a person goes up against the IRS themselves, they probably have about a 95% chance of losing. If they retain a firm like yours, their odds get so much better of resolving their case. They never had a chance before. I've learned that actually they make it worse for themselves, don't they?
Well, and it's not just getting them the best deal possible on the back taxes, Steve. It's protecting their income and their assets and making sure they're compliant moving forward, which leads me to another lesson, Steve. Boy, this is going to be the easiest show ever. You just feed me all day. Oh, you know, I have people on the phone, and the biggest mistake self-employed people make is they set up a payment plan with the IRS, but they don't make estimated tax payments when they get a 1099 or they're self-employed. So they can't make the estimated tax payments because they're paying on the back taxes. So the liability just pyramids, and, you know, they just keep having more and more problems. So the deal is, if you're self-employed, you've got to make those estimated tax payments first because it stops the hemorrhaging. A condition of any agreement is you got to be 100% compliant moving forward, which means you file on time and pay on time. But in addition, you can use those estimated tax payments as an allowable expense to get a much better deal on the back taxes. So it's a win-win for the taxpayer because you got to be compliant moving forward. Neither I nor anybody else can help you out if you're just going to continue to defy the IRS and not pay your taxes in the future.
I want to bring up, because we talked about individuals, but you handle businesses, and there's so many ways a business can get in trouble with the IRS. Let's talk about those.
Well, 70% or more of my clients are self-employed. And those are the people that get in trouble because the taxes aren't automatically taken out. And so it's just like the guy yesterday. And the other problem is if it's payroll tax, now this was 1120, which is corporate income, but we get a lot more payroll tax cases. And the problem is those can get to six figures very, very quick. And so what they need to do to stay current is when they pay their employees, whether it's weekly, whether it's bi-weekly, they need to pay the payroll taxes then. Some are monthly payers, some are quarterly. But, you know, the larger your payroll, the quicker it's going to be that the IRS wants the money. So there's a lot of monthly. But don't wait till the end of the month. If you pay payroll every week, pay the payroll tax then. That's what I do in my business. We pay each other people get paid every other week. And so we send in the payroll taxes right away. That way you never get behind. Because if you don't do that, you know, the money's not going to be there when it becomes due. So you've got to do this. And this is the problem with small businesses. Most of them aren't successful. Everybody thinks it's the American dream to own your own business, but it's a tough deal. And you work a lot of hours, but you got to pay your taxes because they're going to think you're not viable. They're going to say it's a bill like any other. If you can't pay it, you're not a viable business. You ought to shut down.
And people get in a lot of trouble not paying their employee taxes, right?
Absolutely. And Steve, here's the bigger problem. Not only do you get zapped for the payroll taxes, so they come after the business income, business assets, people that owe the business money, they go after them and try to intercept your invoice monies. But here's the other thing. The portion that's attributable to the employee of the total payroll tax, it's called the trust fund civil penalty. It's 50 to 60% of the total tax. And because they consider that you held that in trust for the employee, if you don't pay that payroll tax and they determine you're a responsible party for the business, which means you own the business or you knew or should have known the taxes weren't being paid and you were in charge of the business. They do that interview, which none of my clients ever submit to, and we can go into that later. But now the significance is they can come after your personal assets and your personal income. So now they're looking at the business to get their tax money, and they're also looking at you personally, because the portion that's attributable to the employee you held in trust, you had a fiduciary obligation to pay that, and now they're coming after you personally. So now your home, everything else, your income, your bank account, that's subject to levy.
Here's a question. This is an attorney in New Brunswick, which is right close to San Antonio. And he said, I do not practice law in the same area, but I must tell you, I love watching your show. You've got so much valuable information. It must be tough working with the IRS agents. I'm curious, how did you learn how to deal with them?
Well, it's a tough deal. And when I started out, I basically taught myself. Plus, I went to a lot of seminars, but you learn as you do. Now my attorneys all have the luxury of training and all of that other than these seminars. But it's a rough deal. And, you've got some revenue agents, some revenue officers. They're okay. You got some good ones, but you got some bad ones. And they let the power get to them, and they're hard to deal with. And so what I do when that's a problem, and I can't get anywhere and they're not being reasonable, which happens, I tell them, I want your manager's name and your phone number. And sometimes the manager's no help, and sometimes the manager doesn't get back to you. So I get a hold of the manager and I say, I want your boss. I think I went to one of the last 4 people in the IRS once just to get satisfaction for my client. I understand they got a job to do, but they want everything. This is why the rules of the game are not the same. If you're a revenue officer, they want all this information. And when people do this on their own, they get levied because there's all this stuff. It's confusing. It's complicated. And at the bottom in small print, it says, if you don't get this to us, we're going to levy you. They don't call them to tell them they don't have everything. They just wipe out their bank account. And then they call me. They don't do that to us. And so, if I have a revenue officer that's like, and here's the deal. So when we get a revenue officer case, we put everything aside because there's deadlines or people are going to get levied. But guess what happens, Steve, once they get all that information? They sit on it for months because they don't play the game the same way that we have to play the game. And heaven forbid they work any overtime to get caught up. They don't have enough people there. The service is awful, but guess what? They're zapping twice as many people with levies now as they did in the past, because in 25, they started using artificial intelligence. They raised twice as much money from delinquent taxpayers as they did in 24. The time frames in those nasty letters is collapsing. It's the worst of both worlds for delinquent taxpayers because they're understaffed. They make more mistakes than ever because they're not properly trained. Everything takes longer because there's nobody there. The service is horrendous. But guess what? They're coming after your bank account. They're coming after your paycheck a lot quicker than they did in the past.
Lance, one of the things I've learned from you, especially for a business owner, you try to handle this yourself. Try calling the IRS and being on hold for 2 hours.
That's exactly right. And you know what, Steve? That's what I had to do in the old days. And so you wouldn't get any work done. So you'd have to work on a case while you wait for the IRS. And then guess what? Sometimes you'd get disconnected before the call. And then their computers are from back in the 1980s. So you get on the phone, it would take a half hour to an hour. First, they got to identify you. They go through 5 minutes of that. And I get that. I understand that. But then you give them financials or whatever. And then in the middle of your conversation, they go, I got to put you on a 5 to 7 minute hold. I'll be back. Well, then sometimes they'd come back and say, well, I'm not finished yet. I'll be back in another 5 to 7 minutes. So those calls would turn into an hour. And then sometimes when they'd come back, you'd be disconnected. Oh. So we went through that. Now we pay a pretty penny for software. And thank God I don't have to do this anymore. I get to do the fun stuff, except for personnel stuff. And, you know, we can call them up and we get charged for it. We get charged by the minute, but it's more efficient. And we can get through normally in 3 minutes. Sometimes it's 9 or 10, but very seldom. Normally now we can get through to the IRS, most of the departments in 3 minutes.
But you can. But an individual calling up.
No, they cannot do that.
Crazy. Well, I see we've only got a couple minutes left. By the way, we are going to be replaying this show today. We'll be replaying it on Friday at 2:00 Eastern time. Lance, tell people, I know we're showing up on the screen, but for those who are listening to audio, tell people how they can reach your office.
Well, I got to tell you, Steve, I don't see today the phone numbers at the bottom. I don't know. Maybe they're there and they're just not showing up on mine. But everybody can go to LanceDruryLaw.com. Drury like the ends. DRURY law.com. On my website, you've got all the phone numbers for St. Genevieve, St. Louis, Nashville, San Antonio, and Houston. And there's also an 800 number you can call. There's also a place where you can go on the website, set up your own consult, or set up a place for you want us to call us and contact you. So there's all kinds of ways you can get a hold of us. And so we're here to help you. That's all we do. Steve, I got to tell you, I dogged it today. I got in the office later today than I have all week. I got here at 5:45.
You're the hardest working attorney I have ever known in my life.
Well, I don't work, Steve. I don't work near as hard as I used to because I'm going to be 73 in 2 weeks.
Well, I want to thank our TikTok for over 4,100 likes. I'm going to send you a copy of this, and we'll talk again. We're going to replay the show Friday at 2:00 Eastern time. Lance, watch for my email.
I'm ready for it, Steve, and I'll be back with you on Monday. I can't wait.
Love you, bro. I'll see you then.
Okay. Always a pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
Attorney Lance Drury. Folks, 888-367-6512 is his number. Give him a call. Don't handle this yourself. We're going to go to a break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.